So, hi everyone, I'm Tess McCool. If I don't know who you are, I'm the librarian. And I am today, really, this particular Flipgrid session is Flipgrid Advanced, which means that you're already using it. And the purpose of it is to share with each other the ways that you have used it. And if you have like specific questions about more advanced ways of incorporating it, if you've used it before, troubleshooting questions, things like that. We can help each other. So really, I'm supposed to be more of a facilitator for this session and show, like I said, troubleshoot if there's issues or questions that you have. So with that said, is there anybody who is using Flipgrid or who has used it and wants to share how they're using it in the classroom or how they've used it and successes and struggles? Bueller? How many of you have used it? Can you raise your hand or do the little hand raise? Okay, so some of you have used it. Not to put anybody on the spot, Kate, do you want to talk about how you use it in your class?
Okay, so first question is, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good, because I'm like, sometimes my desktop, like, it's still doing weird glitchy things. So honestly, I've only used it twice in theology. And basically, what I did was I had students view like different video clips, and then they had like an opinion response question. And so after they viewed the video clip that I had pushed out, then they had to basically respond to it by recording themselves. I guess, since I've only used it twice, Hannah Phillips is the one who kind of worked me through like how to kind of do the basics of it. And I set it so that they could not respond to each other's videos. I don't know if anybody out there has used it and had students be able to view each other's videos and respond to each other, like how it's successful. I was actually really like kind of uncomfortable with that because it was the beginning of the year. I didn't really know these students very well. And I was a little bit nervous, like, what if I have like two kids in the class who like really don't get along, you know what I mean? And they decide to watch each other's videos and like bash each other. So I've kind of done it where like I give them feedback. So I don't know like how else you can use it besides students recording themselves, you watching their recording, and then you giving them feedback either like by recording yourself and giving them feedback, or the way that I was able to give them feedback was like I think through email. Yeah. So that's kind of the very basics of what I've done. It's nothing super spectacular.
Has anyone had success? Can everyone hear me? I think okay. I wasn't sure if I unmuted it correctly. Has anyone who's used it before had success? I know if I just talked about my last session, what I did prior to the students using it. But before I repeat that, for those of you who are already in there, I didn't know if anyone else who's used it has done anything to help with that.
With students being uncomfortable, with her being uncomfortable with students commenting?
Yeah.
As I said, Tess, that's the part where I've put on the brakes. I've done 3 topics. They've all been successful, but they've all been one-way communication to me. One was an embedded video with a question to answer. One was a embedded image with something to answer. One was a PowerPoint presentation that they recorded over using 2 internet resources and then presented their presentation and spoke all in Spanish to it. And that counted as their test. That was their performance test. So I've only done 3, but my reason for attending is if, God forbid, we go to full distance learning, I do want that capability of students commenting on one another's recordings, both within the class and from class to class. And so I think maybe if you and Emily are willing, possibly sharing that activity that you did, because that is something I'm going to do before I start that. I loved that. I think that's a great idea. I also, have been using Seesaw with them and Screencastify, because God forbid we ever went to distance learning. I wanted them to have had exposure to all three ways to record in Spanish. And then that way, I can do a little bit of both. I'm torn because in the elementary and middle school levels, the kids they're using Seesaw. The teachers are exclusively using Seesaw. And so the kids will come up to us with that folder of all those recordings from 5th grade on. And so I also find Seesaw to be super easy. I find Flipgrid a little more, how do I put this? I think because of all the capabilities that it has, that whole control panel screen that you just went over with us is a little overwhelming at first. And when I did my first topic post, I forgot to add @apps@southwindsor.org. And so the kids couldn't get into it. So it has like all these little quirks that I have to remember to do, whereas Seesaw doesn't. So I'm just trying to go to the next step with it, which is why I'm attending both sessions, because I do want to be able to do that. But if you and Emily were willing to share that activity, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely.
Because that's exactly what I do at the beginning of the year for classroom stuff. And so since this is all about respect for the individual and being kind, that's sumamente importante para mí.
Yeah, and for those who weren't here, so I apologize for those of you who did attend, just to kind of give you a quick overview, what Emily and I did last year when we were working with 9th graders is we set up an interactive slide in Pear Deck. We talked about the fact that we were going to be using Flipgrid. We demonstrated, we created a little video in Flipgrid to show what was appropriate, what was not appropriate. And we came up with, the students, I should say, Emily and I put out to the questions to the class, what is it that we should be seeing and shouldn't be seeing in our responses to students? And the students came up with, through that interactive slide on Pear Deck, they came up with the norms, if you will, the class norms of how we interact with each other on Flipgrid, and the kinds of comments and things that we should be seeing and hearing and what we shouldn't be seeing and hearing. And then because Flipgrid allows you to attach documents, I attached that to the topic in Flipgrid so that students had that to refer back to. And that really worked very well. And to kind of backtrack, in another class, what we did is we started off very simple, just with introductions, and the kids were able to kind of be silly in the beginning. I mean, we talked about what was appropriate, not appropriate, but we didn't establish like firm class norms at that point, but we gave them something really simple and light before getting into kind of the serious stuff, like, tell us something like, what's your favorite food, or what's your favorite whatever. And then they had to respond back to 2 or 3 other people, depending on the class size. So that kind of helped to, make them comfortable with the technology. And then we did the class norms. And I can definitely share that out. I will dig that out of my Google Drive and share that. Is anyone else allowing students to comment to each other?
Yes, I've had students comment back and forth to each other. And last spring, my ECE kids were working on their senior thesis project, and they were working in partners. So I don't know if there's a better or a different way to do this, but I had to make a class for each group so that they could just keep responding to each other in Flipgrid. So that worked out. It was just time consuming to set up all the groups. But they worked once they were set up?
Yeah, so Sherry, that's a great question and a great point. I don't think there is I can double check, but I'm pretty sure that you would have to create those groups. You don't have to keep recreating the topic since you can just duplicate that for each group. But yeah, unfortunately, I think if you only want 2 to 3 or even 4 people to be interacting on that, you would have to, in your setup of Flipgrid, go into the groups and assign those for students. And if there is, and I'll look to see if there's a better way, almost like, the breakout rooms. I'll see if there is a better way that I'm just not familiar with, and I can let you know.
Thanks.
No problem. Anyone else using the responses or having students talk back and forth with each other?
I did. I did it with my high school students and with the preschool students. And one of the things, Liz, is that if it was if it was for real, that the students were doing it for the preschool students, that they knew it was that, they automatically did it, without actually, doing it appropriately. So it might be something that you might want to do is saying, we're going to do these comments, and the best ones are going to go to Rockville to see if they can respond back to us as well, or something like that. So that, they're thinking that it's going to be real. You might not do it, but they are thinking real stuff. So that's another way that they are thinking, okay, I have to think the best, that I have to make the best thing. And that's how my students were doing it. And then they made comments with each other. They made comments to the preschool students that way as well.
Thank you, Anne.
Sure.
And Anne shared with me last year what her kids did with the preschoolers in the spring. And it was really amazing at how they utilized that. And the preschoolers responded back in video. So it was pretty amazing. And I understand, Liz, what your point was earlier too, is that the younger kids tend to be, though maybe silly, tend to be more respectful because they aren't quite as, into in a sense, it's almost like social media. Like, what do you want others to see about you? And I suppose knowing that everyone in class has the ability to see your response to someone, how do you want to be seen? How do you, would that be appropriate? Would you say that to them in person? And again, that's part of establishing the norms of this is how we treat each other when we're using technology, or even when we're face-to-face. We hopefully wouldn't talk to each other the way that some might in the situation of feeling like they're behind a camera and it's a little easier to misbehave. And then the other piece is there, as I mentioned before too, and I apologize for being redundant, there is the ability to set moderation on anyone's response so that nothing gets posted until you view it. So that also is another layer of protection. And if it's inappropriate, that certainly could reflect in a grade, or however, I know that probably not anymore, but in the old days, they probably could have some reflection of their grade or their score. How is anyone else who's using it have any kind of lesson that's worked well that they want to share? Anything that they've attempted? So I'll share one more thing that we did last year, and I helped a math teacher. You know how you have to score all of the standards, not score, but you have to enter standards. Everyone's responsible for entering standards at a certain point in the year that reflect the school mission, the wellness and all of that. And what that teacher did was she set it up so that they had to rate themselves. So instead of filling out a survey, they had to just create a little video of what they did in order to meet that standard or reflect that standard. And then they didn't say, so she set it up so it was more of like a class collaborative thing. They didn't say what standard they were meeting. They would just say what they did. And then somebody else in the class would have to guess what the standard was that they were trying to reflect. So it was kind of a neat way to, again, interact and turn something that maybe wasn't so enjoyable into something a little more enjoyable. Anyone else?
Tess, that's great. Tess, that's great. I really like that because in world language, we have proficiency levels. So that would be a great way to get the kids to identify the different criteria under each proficiency level. I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, no problem. Anyone else have any thoughts of how they might use it, even though you haven't used it yet, or if you haven't used it yet?
One of the things that I know Jose Rivera has done in our department is that he tells the kids after they've created their video to listen to 3 other classmates' videos and to do a follow-up question with regards to what they've presented in Spanish, because one of the things to take the kids from novice high to intermediate low is the ability to ask and answer questions, which is why I need to start this up.
Yeah, that's great. I like that.
Yeah, and he says it's working well. I just wasn't comfortable with letting go yet, because at least in break rooms, I can somewhat, in breakout rooms, I can somewhat monitor. But this, it just scares, it scares me. I'm going to admit it. I'm from the 80s. I'm not in touch with the Gen Z crowd, and it scares me. I'm being honest. And I just hope that they can be kind to one another. And I think they will. They do a phenomenal job online and in class. It's just me being afraid of letting go and having them craft. But I can tell you one thing, they enjoy putting the emoji heads over their faces in the videos.
And that is one of the things, like I said in the beginning, we just like let them go at it. Like we're like, do whatever you want for the introductions, and they kind of got it out of their system. But the other thing that is important that we talk about, that I've talked about with students when I use this too, is not everyone is comfortable being on camera. I know I hate it. And so the emojis are a way of making someone still feel comfortable so that you're not seeing their face, but that you can see them. And I just know, like, my son had to use this. He's in 4th grade this year, but he had to use this all last year. And it was a struggle because he really disliked, 1, seeing his face, and then 2, hearing his own voice, because it automatically plays back. And that freaked him out when he realized what his voice sounded like recorded. So one of the things that we discovered was he could type everything he wanted to say on like a Google slide, and that was what was up on his screen. So he'd hit record on Flipgrid, but then quickly go to the Google slide and use that as a teleprompter. So he couldn't see his face. And then we'd quickly hit done. We'd go back, quickly hit done, and he'd submit it. He wouldn't even hear it. He would just hit submit, submit, submit. And that was it. And that actually helped quite a bit. And I know the other thing that worked for a lot of the students that we did this with last year as well at the high school was they used that pixelated version of themselves so that you could hear them, you saw their kind of like their image, if you will, but you couldn't see their face. And that made them comfortable too. And we did, in setting up the class norms, we talked about that. Like, you do not have to show your face, but I need to hear your voice.
Yeah, I also tell the kids they can, put their screen so it faces the ceiling. So instead I see all the neon lights going around the ceiling because they all have them.
Yeah.
Real quickly, is there any way that we as teachers, because I give verbal feedback, I don't do written, and I also don't like being on camera, especially when I'm correcting at 4 in the morning with no makeup on. and I can't pixelate or put a emoji on my face. The best I can do is hit share, but it still gives a little box image of me. Is there any?
What you should be able to do is upload an image. You should, like in giving video in Flipgrid, when you give video feedback, you should be able to, or at least in the past, and again, I'll have to look at that. Last year, you were able to like pixelate, you were able to upload an image instead. So
okay, so I'll have to explore that. I'll check with Jose. He's our resident guru.
Yeah, he's good. I will check too and just see if there's something. So I have those two things. Like, is there a way to kind of do a breakout so you have to keep recreating groups, and then Flipgrid feedback without the video, if you will. And then the other feature that they added this year is that you can provide feedback, students and teachers, and it can be just text. So they have, when you're setting it up, there is an option for video and text, just video or just text. And so they can just type a response back as well. Or, you know, if you have both, they could just type a response and they don't have to be on video at all, or the student could choose to do both, or however you want to set it up. So again, for those who are a little more camera shy, that might be helpful as well. Any other features or questions that people have discovered? And, you know, I certainly don't know everything. And every time I feel like I have a really good grasp, they change it. So there's definitely things that I keep going back like, wait, that's different. That's not how it works anymore. So if there's anything that anyone else has discovered or thinks is helpful, please feel free to share.
I actually haven't used it yet. I'm still like jumping into all these different programs. But Liz, I just wanted to offer you like words of support when you were saying like you were nervous about like going to that next step, and just like be real with the kids and tell them. Because I felt like for the first few weeks, I felt like I had to be on stage and everything was perfect. And finally I was like, screw this. I'm like, guys, this isn't working. Nothing's working. I can't get this to work. So just sit tight. And like, once I did that, I was like, all right, I'm fine. I'm fine. And I just let them know. And I make a joke out of it. Every fail, like the last happy hour thing I did, I almost forgot to record. I was like, yep, winning again. So just like, let them know, like, I am nervous about this. So I will be watching out for this, and be nice to each other, or I will shut it down. And just tell them that, because they need to know. And the kids know that this sucks. They know that it sucks for us too. And so many, when I've given surveys, the kids are like, the teachers are trying so hard, even when they have trouble with technology. So just like take that off your chest and just be real with them. And you can do it. You're going to be great.
Thank you, Becca. I appreciate it. That's what I do with when we do Kahoot for vocab review. I tell them, if you put a nickname or a pen name or a pseudonym, we're not playing.
All right. These are great suggestions and ways that people are using it. If you have any, I know we have about a minute left. If anyone has any thoughts about or want to share like how you might end up using it, that'd be great too. I know like one of the things I'm thinking about, since students can't check out books, is I was thinking of doing some kind of Flipgrid thing and posting it on the library webpage where I do like little book reviews. Although I hate getting in videos, so I'm still trying to figure out, like, I might be like mostly emoji, but just to share like some great ebooks and audiobooks that I've read, or maybe a little book talk, since I can't be in classes with students this year. All right. Okay. If anyone has any questions, I'll look into those two things, the Flipgrid video feedback and the breakout room. And if there's anything else that comes up, please just let me know. Or if you really need some help putting things together, absolutely let me know. I can help with that. Just shoot me an email. All right. Okay. Bye, everyone. Thank you.